إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أما بعد الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه مباركا كما يحب ربه ويرضى. My dear brothers and respected sisters, by the mercy of Ar-Rahman, we are continuing with our durus. We are studying, as you should know by now, the book of either Muslim or Mushrik, author Abu Hamza al-Afghani Hafidhullah. Topic is very important and it is connected to the fundament of this Deen, to the la ilaha illallah. It is regarding the bid'ah mukaffira, or the bid'ah which takes person out of Islam who practice or who believes in it, and it is to give order, to give excuse to the one who commits Shirk Akbar, the one who worships other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give him excuse in jahl, tawil, taqlid or ijtihad and whatever else the mushrikun came up with. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is only one worthy of worship, and He said in the Quran, إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنُّ بِالْإِيمَانِ, meaning except those who are compelled and their hearts are in peace with al-Iman, meaning their hearts are in peace with Tawheed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He did not give excuse in Shirk Akbar except to the one who is compelled to do it, and he does it, but he still is in peace with al-Iman. He still believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His oneness and His right to be only worshipped. Scholars, they say that the reason why ikrah is the only valid excuse for Shirk Akbar is that the person who is compelled, who is mukrih, he does not have his will, irada, to do such a thing. And he does it reluctantly. He does it because he is forced to do. And other than those, such as the jahil, mutawil, the one who has a false interpretation, the one who has ijtihad, taqlid, they all have the will to do it. They all have the will to do it, and it is not excuse for them if they have desire to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if they are sincere in what they do and what they believe in. Because the mushrikun from before, from the first one to the last one in this dunya, they all had desire to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to come closer to Him. And this sincerity in their deeds and in their beliefs, that they want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, did not excuse them of becoming mushrikun, kufar. May Allah save us from that harm. Now, Shaykh Abu Hamza al-Afghani, he continues in his book by bringing the sixth irrefutable evidence regarding this abominable bid'ah. He said, Islam and Shirk in their true meanings are completely opposite. Their meanings are explained absolutely clearly in the Quran and Sunnah. About this there is a consensus. So he who commits Shirk does not fulfill the basis of Islam. How can one still declare him as a Muslim? One is either Muslim or Mushrik. A third group does not exist. Islam means, in the consensus of the scholars of language and tafsir and all other scholars, to completely submit oneself under the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So including the humility, submission and obedience. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَلَا مَنْ أَسْلَمَ وَجْهَهُ لِلَّهِ وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ فَلَهُ أَجْرُهُ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ وَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Meaning, yes, but whoever submits his face to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and performs good deeds, he is a doer of good, muhsin, then his reward is with his Rabb. such shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. يحزنون. Surah Al-Baqarah, ayat 112. At-Tabari, rahimahullah, narrates from some of the Salaf as follows. That they said, he who submits his whole self to Allah, meaning man aslama wajhahu lillah, means akhlasa lillah, that he does it purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever deeds he is doing, be it the deeds of the heart or the limbs. Free from shirk, submitting himself only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said further, like Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufail also said, I have surrendered my face to him, to whom the clouds carrying pure water also surrender. Meaning here, I have submitted myself to his subhanahu wa ta'ala obedience, and clouds are also submitted and whose orders they follow. In this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions those who submit their faces alone to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mentioning the face here has been given preference to over the rest of the body because the most precious, important, and worth protecting part of the body is the face. When a person submits his face, his most precious part of the body, to something odd or someone, then the rest of the body naturally follows in submission. For the Arabs, it was logical and also linguistically that when they mention the face, it means the body as a whole. So the ayah means, nay, whoever obeys and worships Allah purely, free from shirk for Allah alone, and carries it out in the best manner. The end of the quote from Imam al-Tabari. As also stated and thoroughly explained by Imam Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah, in his tafsir. Hence, Islam means in the consensus to surrender in worshipping Allah alone with submission, without associating anything with Him. Whosoever does not do this can never be a Muslim. Upon this they are all in agreement. And how else can it be? Let us demonstrate this by means of an example. A man never rides a horse, instead always walks by foot, and he also never did ride. How could a rational and reasonable thinking person call him an equestrian, one who rides a horse? Similarly, a person who never submitted himself to Allah alone and attributed others to Him, someone who never worshipped Him sincerely and still does not do it, such a person cannot be described as a Muslim. He does not possess the characteristics required in Islam which would make him to a Muslim. And his deeds are not according to the deeds of a Muslim. No one who has a common sense would define him as a Muslim. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah says in the Majmu' Fatawa, volume 14, page 282-284, and so anyone who does not worship Allah must undoubtedly be worshipping something other than Him. He who worships someone other than Him and is therefore Mushrik. Among the sons of Adam there is no third part. There is only Muwahid and Mushrik. Or those who combine both parts, like the distorters of the followers of different religions, and the Christians and those who have gone astray, who consider themselves to be within Islam. End of quote. He who reflects over this passage will find that Shaykh al-Islam says 5 times each time in a different way that someone who commits shirk can never be a Muslim. Is there something clearer than that? Therefore, explain all the unclear testaments, mutashabih, from Shaykh al-Islam with this clear, plain and excellent statement, and do not act like the people of perversity, those who went astray. Shaykh Abdul Rahman says in his work Explanation of the Principle of Islam and its most important pillar, and Abdul Latif says in his Minhaj, page 12, he who commits shirk leaves tawheed. For they are two opposites which never come together and can never cancel each other out. When the Islam departs, shirk must take its place, whereas it is irrelevant why Islam departed. And he who does not know this, he has not understood Islam. And here Sheikh Abu Hamza, rahimahullah, Abu Hamza Hafidhullah, he completed the 6th irrefutable evidence. So inshallah, by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by his guidance, many benefited sentences have passed by here. Alhamdulillah. And it is to us, inshallah, to pay attention and to think in order to understand this religion, Tawheed, as it was to be understood and act according to it. So here, author, he is telling us that Islam and Shirk are two opposite entities. Didani, they are opposite and they are in war constantly with each other as day and night, meaning when day comes, inevitably night has to leave, and otherwise when night comes, day has to leave, so they can never combine each other, so in order to be always night and day together. No. Same is with Shirk and Islam, with Tawheed and Shirk. They are opposite. And doesn't matter how the Shirk comes, Islam leaves. So does it be it in ignorance, in wrong interpretation, in involving ijtihad, maximum exhortation, in finding the truth, doesn't matter. If someone has went against Tawheed, then he is Islam departed immediately. Even if he is not aware of it, and even he does not want to commit Shirk and Kufr. As Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah said, nobody wants to be Kaafir, nobody wants to do Kufr except to whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. So, as Shaykh Abdurrahman ibn Hassan al-Shayman, he said, when the one who commits Shirk, then Tawheed is the one who is leaving. And the person is now called Mushrik. Before he was Muslim, Muwahid, now he's Mushrik because of the act what he is doing, meaning the Shirk. And the person cannot be at the same time Muslim because he testified the Shehada, la ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah, and he prays 5 times a day, but at the same time he does something which nullifies this Shehada, such as committing Shirk Akbar, then he cannot be at the same time Muwahid, Hanif, and Mushrik. He is either Mushrik or Muwahid. And that's why this important rule which Shaykh Abdul Latif mentioned regarding the Shirk and Tawheed, as he said, إِنَّهُمَا ضِدَّانِ وَلَا يَجْتَمِعَانِ. And he said this is very important qawaid, this is very important rule. And many people went into fitna, meaning the Shirk and Kufr, because they did not differentiate, they did not understand this basis of al-Islam, the basis of Tawheed. And they, due to their lack of understanding and blindly following the worshippers of Taghouth, the worshippers of false deities, such as Dawood bin Jirjis and those after him who came, that the person who does big shirk, his deeds are shirk and kufr, but he, if he is ignorant or the one who has false interpretation, if he is mujtahid, then he is still Muslim until the hujjah comes, the proof comes to him. And as far as we know, alhamdulillah, and this is haqq of al-Sunnah wal-Jama, and there was no disagreement, as we mentioned before in our lectures, in our series, the one that does shirk, he is a mushrik. If he did not know, if hujjah was not established, if risalah never came to him, he is a mushrik, but he is not a mushrik of punishment in dunya al-akhirah. He is the one who commits kufr, but not kufr mu'adabu alayhi. And Shaykh Ismail bin Abdurrahman al-Shaykh, he said there is a ijma over it, and there is no doubt. There is no doubt. And the one who goes against it and he does not understood Islam, he does not understood Islam, and he leaves the mushrikun to be in this Deen al-Islam, and he calls them still muwahid Muslim, and by this he falls into kufr himself, because he did not pronounce Kaafir to be Kaafir, and he doubts into his kufr, and he validates his minhaj. His minhaj. May Allah save us from ignorance and blind following. Author, he said one sentence here, which we are going to shed some light on it. He said, hence Islam means, in the consensus, to surrender and worship Allah alone with submission, without associating anything with Him. Whosoever does not do this can never be a Muslim. Upon this, they are all in agreement, meaning there is ijma concerning this statement. So here, Shaykh al-Islam, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he mentions frequently, when he states the definition of Islam, when he explains the meaning of Islam, he said in Tadmuriyah, page 169, he said, rahimahullah, Islam implies submission, istislam, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Whoever submits himself to Him and to anyone else is a mushrik. And whoever does not submit himself to Him is too arrogant to worship Him. Mustakbir. Both the mushrik and the one who is too arrogant to worship Him are Kaafir. Submission to Him alone implies worshipping Allah alone and obeying Him alone. This is the religion of Islam, other than which Allah will not accept any religion. Submission is achieved by worshipping Allah at all times by doing that which He subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded to be done at that particular time. And end of the quote of Shaykh Ismail ibn Taymiyyah. So here, Islam implies, my dear brothers and sisters, worship and obedience. And what here Shaykh Islam is saying to us, that the one who takes someone other as Allah, as ilah, the one who is worshipped by one particular ibadah, by one singular ibadah, doesn't matter which ibadah it is, be it from the heart ibadah, by tongue, by limbs, any ibadah, he is the one who is worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whoever does not submit himself to Allah, meaning whoever does not obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His command, in His rule and judgment, he also comes under this, that he is the one who is taking other as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as deity, as the one who is supposed to be worshipped. And therefore, he is mushrik. And also he mentioned that there is other kind, such as Firaun, and those who follow his steps, may Allah save us, that there are those who recognize the truth, but they refuse to submit themselves to al-Islam, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of their kibur, their pride. And he said that this group is also Kaafir, and there is no difference between the first and the second group. Because he said Islam is worship and obedience. Worship and obedience. Alhamdulillah. Author of the book, either Muslim or Mushrik, he continues by bringing the seventh irrefutable evidence. He said, the Mushrik surely does not fulfill the condition of knowledge from the conditions of La ilaha illallah, concerning which all scholars are in agreement. However, how can he then be Muslim? All scholars in agreement that a person can only then be a Muslim when he fulfills the condition of knowledge, ilm. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَعَلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Surah Muhammad, ayat number 19. He said, it is not possible that someone who worships anything other than Allah does this without perceiving it in its godly attribute. At least we can say that he definitely thinks it deserves to be worshipped. However, if he in reality does not think like this, then he can anyway not be an ignorant mushrik, but rather he is a mushrik who is consciously negligent, and therefore a Kaafir because the message has reached him. and he knows it is wrong to worship something other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And no other deserves to be worshipped except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but regardless of this knowledge, he worships something else. An example was provided to us by a person who went astray concerning this matter. He described a possible situation. Before we continue with the example which author provided for us, inshallah, we're going to stop here and discuss a little bit this notion of shart, condition of la ilaha, which is ilm, knowledge. As author he pointed to us that there is a consensus of all scholars of Islam that one of the conditions of la ilaha illallah is ilm. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated, فَعَلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Shart, knowledge. We can, for example, give example in order to illustrate to those who listen to us in our lecture. The one who wants to pray, he has a shart condition, which is to have wudu, tahara. He has to be pure. He has to be pure. If he prays from takbir to salam, but while he was praying or before he start prayer, he lost tahara, purity, wudu, then his salah, his prayer is not valid anymore, and he has to do what? He has to pray again, because one of the conditions of salah was gone, invalidated. Or in other words, for example, the one who is taking wudu, there are certain conditions, certain pillars of wudu which has to be performed. For example, the one who takes wudu, he has to wash his face. If he washes all the limbs required, but he doesn't wash the face, be it of ignorance, of forgetfulness, or whatever reason it is, he did not fulfill the condition, and therefore his wudu is not valid. His wudu is not valid, and he has to perform wudu again in order to be pure, to have the conditions to proceed towards the salah, to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the scholars are talking about la ilaha illallah and whatever, and the meanings and requirements of la ilaha, the la ilaha illallah with his muqtada has conditions. And one of these conditions which Shaykh mentioned here as a refutable evidence is ilm, knowledge. And usually it is the first condition which scholars mention for la ilaha illallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many places in the Quran, through many ayats, and his messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they mentioned the importance of knowledge, and they mentioned that ignorance is necessary attribute of shirk. Because they say shirk is in reality partner of ignorance, and tawheed is partner of knowledge. And knowledge and tawheed, they never separated, same as the jahl, ignorance, and shirk, they never separated, they are together. When jahl comes, pure jahl regarding the tawheed, then the shirk is there. Then the shirk is there. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ذلك دين القيم ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. This is the true religion, but majority, many of the people did not know. لا يعلمون. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described them with attribute of jahl. That's why Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, when he was explaining this particular ayah in Surah Yusuf, ayah number 40, he said, because majority of them were mushrikun, majority of them are disbelievers, Regarding why? La ya'lamun, because they do not know. They do not know what? Deenul qayyim. Deen, true deen. And deen is what? Deen is al-Tawheed. Deen is Tawheed. Submission and obedience only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with utmost love. And they do not know this. And because of their jahl, they went to astray by worshipping and obeying other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this worshipping and obeying other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be in one aspect, in one particular ibadah. It can be once in life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us. Allahumma jnubni wa baniyan abud al-Asmaa. It can be in once in lifetime. If the person, even if he was jahil, ignorant, what he did, but he knew what he was doing, then he is a mushrik. And if he does not repent, he does not make sincere tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he leaves what he done, or what he was doing, then he is a mushrik. And if the Risala came to him, he is mushrik Kaafir. As we repeat this constantly in order to emphasize this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also, he said in Surah Al-Luqman, ayah number 25, قُلْ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ بَلْ أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the meaning, say, all praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, majority of them, they do not know. بَلَا أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. So they do not know, they know that praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they do not know that all praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because of that lack of knowledge, because of this jahl, they went to obeying and worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, the jahl is connected and it is an attribute of shirk. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said in Surah Al-Duha, number 39, مَا خَلَقْنَاهُمَا إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, we created them bil-haq, in truth, with a cause, truthful cause. وَلَكِنَّ, but أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But majority of them, they do not know. They are jahil. So what is this bil-haq? This is that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to be worshipped. La ilaha illallah. No one is worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with all kinds of ibadah, only to Him. La sharika lah. And they were ignorant of this fact, bil-haq. So they say, yes, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives life and death. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only from Him comes sustenance. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is only one who creates. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Rabb, the one who rules with this universe. But they still, this knowledge and still what they recognize and affirm of Rububiyyah, this did not make them as what? As a muwahidun. Hunafa. No, they were mushrikun because why? Because they worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because they had a lack of knowledge. They were jahil. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. So again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasized that the cause of their shirk, the cause of their kufr was jahl. So how can be jahl? Udhr, meaning excuse for them, as the mushrikun of today, they are saying, because they do not know the tawheed, they do not know the reality of Islam, and that's why themselves, even though they do not make shirk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are mushrikun because they excuse mushrikun in their kufr, and they still believe that these people are Muslimun. And they excuse them in majority of cases because of jahl. Subhanallah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's saying that the jahl is the cause of their shirk and kufr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says in Surah Al-Anfal, إِنْ أَوْلِيَاؤُهُ إِلَّا الْمُتَّقُونَ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Meaning, verily their awliya has to be only muttaqun, those who are pious, who perform good deeds and stay away from the bad deeds. Those who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. And again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the majority of them, they do not know. And my dear brothers and sisters, this particular trait of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala connecting jahl, ignorance, to shirk and kufr are very hard to enumerate. Very hard to enumerate. And only those people to whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seal the heart, they do not see this. And if they see it, they do not take benefit from it, because the knowledge is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah save us from ignorance. Subhanallah. Now, we want to say from Ibn Abbas, rahimahullah, one example how the Salaf, they understood this particular topic, matter. Ibn Abbas, rahimahullah, he said regarding those from the people of the Lut, and the reason why the people of Lut, they fell into shirk. So he said, rahimahullah, they did not worship idols until first generations were gone. So when knowledge was gone, they started to worship them. So he, one of the greatest scholars of Islam, those for whom Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him understanding, knowledge of interpretation of Quran, he said that the reason people of Nuh alayhi salam, those who did not have the Prophet before Nuh, that the reason they fell into shirk was what? Was lack of knowledge. So meaning when the knowledge went away from them by death of the scholars among them, or the generations before them, who knew the reality of what they were doing with the idols. So because of the jahl and wrong interpretation, because my dear sisters and my dear brothers and sisters, the jahl, it has its sisters, and its sisters are what? Tawil, taqlid. So the one who falls into jahl doesn't have to be, it can be because of the tawil, because he did not know, because of his jahl, lack of knowledge, the matter, so he did not understand that something which is plain, so he went to interpretation of it, to tawil, and he went into the kufr. And this is very, very known today, that those who ascribe to knowledge, they went into tawil in the matters which there is no, or ijtihad in the matters which there is no valid tawil or valid ijtihad, neither by the language or by other stipulations for ijtihad or tawil. And because of that, they went into the kufr. And which is worse also, they went to the kufr, and they drag others who follow them blindly into kufr also. May Allah save us. Because, why? Because of, again, of their jahl, ignorance of tawheed. It is important to say, as Shaykh ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he mentions from Marwadi, Muhammad ibn Nasir, as he said, ignorance regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every case, before or after revelation, wahi or risala, is kufr. Majmu' Fatawa, volume 7, page 325. So Shaykh ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he said, by quoting Marwadi, who said ignorance regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning tawheed, that all acts of worship, hidden or apparent belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ignorance in this aspect also means the ignorance of attributes and names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when the person, when he has a knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of his attributes and names, inevitably it's going to lead that person, this knowledge, that only all acts of ibadah belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why the jahl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Shaykh scholars they say, Marwad ibn Taymiyyah, who quotes him, he say, before or after revelation is kufr. So what they mean by this before or after revelation? After revelation means it is kufr because the ayat they came and the person who hears these ayats, either he is mustakbir, the one who is proud to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his commands, so he worship other than Allah. Or the one who turn away. The one who turn away from the Risalah, he does not want to, what? To investigate and to study in order to act upon it. So this person is a Kaafir. This person is a Kaafir after Risalah. But before Risalah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala endowed, He bestowed upon sons of Adam in the Fatra the knowledge that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is supposed to be worshipped. And knowledge in Fatra that Shirk is repulsive and that Shirk is opposite to la ilaha illallah. Meaning that all ibadah belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also it is understood by aql, by the reason of the person, by the reason, very reason. And because of this, no one is excused in jahl, in ignorance of la ilaha illallah, even before or after salah. But we affirm again, we say that the reason and fatra and the reason are not enough for the punishment of for the person who commits shirk and kufr to be punished in dunya and akhirah. Because of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many places in Quran, He emphasizes and He repeats that after the coming of the prophets, the hujjah is established. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا كُنَا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. In Surah Al-Isra, He said that we are not going to punish. We never punished until we send the Prophet, meaning the Risala, Quran and the Sunnah. So when the Quran and Sunnah comes, then the punishment is upon the person who turns away or who is mustakbir, the one who doesn't want to obey. In any case, the jahl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not excused and can never be excused. So by this we know how foolish, how ignorant are those who say that the jahl is excused. They say and they are proud, they think that they are upon something, but they are instead chasing illusion. They say, how can you say for someone who says for himself that he is a Muslim and he say Shehada, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasul, and he prays 5 times a day, but because of his ignorance which he unfortunately could not take away from himself, and he was not able to take away this ignorance, you say for him that he is a mushrik. We say, if this is the case, indeed, truly he is a mushrik, because he worships other than Allah, besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But because he was jahil, if he dies in this state, he is going to be questioned on day of judgment. He is going to be tested. And if he passes the test, then he will enter to Jannah. If he fails, then he will enter into hellfire. And the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be shown, will be apparent. Also, Malik ibn Anas, rahimahullah, he said, during times where there is lack of knowledge, brutality and mercilessness is spread. As our scholars, they say, the one who is knowledgeable, he is merciful toward the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, Ar-Rahman istiwa ala al-arsh. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us with His attribute of Rahman, of mercy, that He rose above the arsh. He did not say Al-Jabbar or al-Qahhar istiwa al-arsh, because he said, Rahmati fawqa ghadabi. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, my mercy went above, or is above my ghadab, my anger. And that's why those who are knowledgeable, who has these qualities of knowledge, their mercy is going above their anger. That's why Ibn Malik ibn Anas, he said, during times where there is lack of knowledge, brutality and mercilessness is spread. And during times when knowledge of Sunnah is decreased, misguidance is spread. So he said, when there is a lack of knowledge, the innovations in religion are what? Are spreading, and they become apparent. Because we say the ignorance is necessary attributes of Shirk. And what? And Fusuq. Because as the Sahaba, they used to say, the one who commits sin towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he was jahil. He was jahil. And this is the end of the quote from Malik ibn Anas. So my dear brothers, it is necessary to learn this religion, not to blindly follow those who do not know it. May Allah save us from ignorance. Inshallah, we are going to continue now with the example which author of this very valuable book, either a Muslim or Mushrik, he put for us. So he said, this example ultimately proved the exact opposite of what he tried to convey. Apart from the fact that the example given by him was and is anyway very unlikely to occur. It goes as follows. He said, how would it be if a man would live in a secluded village, separated from civilization, and sorrow befalls him? He turns for help to the only sheikh in the village, a Sufi sheikh. The man has only heard well of this person, and all the people confirm that he is a knowledgeable man. It is not possible for this man to travel in order to hear the opinions of other scholars. The message has not reached this man, and he has no opportunity to obtain the truth. So this man goes to the sheikh to ask him what he should do. The sheikh replies, the Prophet ﷺ says in an authentically narrated Sahih Hadith with golden narration chain, as he claims, if the breast feels tight, then call upon the dwellers of the graves is right. The well-known cursed and false hadith. Thereupon the man goes and does what he is advised to do and commits thereby shirk. So one can say that this man wanted nothing else but to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and to do that which the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam instructed him to do. And this is the end of the example put forward by ignorant person in order to defend mushrikun and to defend those who do not make takfir on mushrikun. So we say, this man given in the example surely does not know the meaning of la ilaha illallah. He does not know that he is the only allowed to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and it is not allowed to attribute anything or anyone with Allah in any situation whatsoever. Even more, that man thinks that the dead can benefit him and harm him, and he has the ability to relieve him from his problems. If the people who raise such shubuhats would only reflect upon the questions concerning the basis of this deen without at the same time following their own desires to make the mushrikeen into submissive Muslims, and also treating them as such, if they would only once think about this seriously, the matter would become clear to them at once. They but follow their vain desires, and therefore they do not want to and cannot practice the correct aqidah. Now, when they discover what the Salaf really said, They try day and night to twist their words. It is easy to talk about Kufr and Ridda, apostasy, as long as it is concerns only one person, namely the ruler. So we asked them. So what here, Shaykh, for example, he mentioned when the ruler, because some of those who attribute themselves to al-Sunnah wal-Jama, they, for example, they say, yes, the rulers of today, they are Kufar, Taghouth, Tawaghit, but those who do not make them Tawaghit, those who still follow them, believe that they are righteous, believe that they are Amir Mu'minin, whose obedience is wajib, or those so-called scholars who protect these rulers, who gave fatwa in order to protect them, to make them firm on power, to curse and chastise and to accuse of to be Khawarij, of Takfeer. They still say for these groups of people that they are still Muslim, but they are misguided. They have the wrong tawil, or jahl again. And by this, they fail to realize what? Aslu Deen. Because as the scholars of Ahl-Sunnah wal-Jama, they say that meaning of La ilaha illallah is what? Al-Shaykh Abdul Rahman bin Hassan al-Shaykh said. Al-Shaykh Abdul Latif bin Abdul Rahman said. Al-Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahab said. As Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jaziyah before them in Madarij al-Salikin, he said, when he was explaining one of the Manazila of La ilaha illallah, he said that the bara'atu min al-shirki, as Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jaziyah, he said, this is of bara'a min al-shirk wa ahluha. Min al-shirk wa ahluha. So in order to stay away from the shirk, you need to renounce those who worship them, who worship idols, those who are guilty of shirk. So the one who does not come with this, then he is not Muslim himself. Either because he is too proud, he knows of their shirk and kufr, but he does not want to make them kafirs. Or he is jahil, he has a tawil. So in either circumstances, they are guilty at least to be mushrikun themselves, because they do not know la ilaha illallah. They do not differentiate between iman and tawheed, and shirk and kufr. So we continue here with our book. He said, they but follow the vain desires, and therefore they do not want to and cannot practice the correct aqidah. Now, when they discover that the Salaf really said, they try day and night to twist their words. It is easy to talk about Kufr and Ridda as long as it is concerning only one person, namely the ruler. So we ask them, why do you really hate this person, the ruler? Do you hate him because he has committed apostasy with Islam and calls to worship himself? Or do you hate him because he treated you unjustly as well? Your deeds imply the latter. When they realize that their own friends and relatives and many from their nations have fallen into worst forms of shirk, kufr and ridda, they attempt to twist the basis of this deen. Within the blink of an eye, they perceive everyone who tries to live according to Aqidah of the Salaf as dog from the dogs of hell, an extreme takfiri. As some misguided, extreme Jahmiya, those for whom people today, they say they are the imams of Muslimun, and they used to say that those who say takfir on those who change the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who are mustakbirun, those who turn away from the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they rule by the rules of other than the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they legislate by the legislation other than the legislation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they go to be judged by hukm of Taghouth in international law, rather to be judged by the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these people, in order to protect, because they do not know the La ilaha illallah, in order to protect these people, they say that those who made takfir on these rulers, that they are the Khawarij, and they are, because of that, they mentioned the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, which mentioned that the Khawarij are the dogs of hellfire. And in reality, they want to escape from takfir, as they say, oh, this is something very hard in religion, this is very, very dangerous. And in reality, they make takfir because they say the Khawarij. And as it is known, that very large group of the scholars of Islam from the Salaf and the Khalaf, they say that for the Khawarij that they are kuffar. To continue, that man who invoked to the dead for help, he could have impossibly been a Muslim if he believed that which he was advised by so-called Sheikh. A Muslim, however, who has understood the basis of this Deen, that there is no one worthy of worship besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that then hears this hadith mentioned above, for him it is immediately clear and logical that this hadith must be a false one. It is obviously contradicts the basis of Islam, which will not change until the end of time. This does not mean that if a person who does not know anything concerning one specific form of ibadah from all the forms which exist, that he cannot be a Muslim. Maybe he is even unfamiliar with a lot of it. However, whosoever does not know about main principle, namely that everything which Allah has ordered mankind to do ought to be done by seeking only His favor and not others, such a person cannot be a Muslim. It is, for instance, not a serious matter if someone does not know that there is ibadah of nadr, the act of obliging oneself to do something good that is not obligatory. On the other hand, if he sees that people are performing this worship for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he must reject and rebuke it immediately. If he does not, but instead also begins to imitate them in this act, then he is a Mushrik and Kaafir, according to the consensus of the scholars, because he has received a message that one is not allowed to worship anything or anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is la ilaha illallah. Here, author of the book, he is telling us that the one, he can be ignorant of certain acts of ibadah, as he mentioned other, but when he sees in reality that someone is doing this ibadah, he has to recognize that this only belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he needs to renounce and to make takfir on those who does it. As it is known that those in time of Jahiliyyah, before the messenger, before the wahi, before the risala came to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they used to know that the slaughtering of the animals which Quraysh used to do for their idols, Lat and Uzza and Manat, they used to know that this is forbidden, this belongs only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even though nobody told them that act of slaughtering is ibadah and belongs only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they knew this because they knew Tawheed, they knew La ilaha illallah. And they knew what comes out of the meaning of the La ilaha illallah. And they knew that it is wajib, it is absolutely ordered that the one has to act according to his knowledge. So they knew if someone directs other acts of ibadah to someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then immediately he is guilty of shirk and he is mushrik. Even though nobody told them, meaning like for us today that someone comes and he recites ayah to us, Inna a'tanaka al-kathar fasalli li rabbika wanhar. So meaning fasalli li rabbika wanhar, the second part, wanhar is what? As according to the consensus of Mufassirun, is slaughtering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala animals. So this is ibadah as salah is ibadah. So nobody told this person from Quraysh, but still he recognized, because he recognized La ilaha illallah. That's why we repeat again, jahl of La ilaha illallah before or after Risala is Kufr. and acting according to this jail is also kufr. So this person in this example, if he knew la ilaha illallah, if he had this condition of ilm, of la ilaha illallah, he would recognize immediately that this Sufi sheikh, so-called, what he is telling him that this is kufr, and that the hadith which he put in the mouth of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is batil hadith, which is fabricated hadith, is falsehood. And he would have to stay from these people and from what they're doing, because this is necessitated by, this is inevitable by knowledge of la ilaha illallah. Now to continue, Shaykh Abu Maryam said in his comment on this topic, Hafidhullah, so one must make a difference between the ignorance of one form of worship and performing that worship for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ignorance concerning a form of worship comes under the ignorance of some information from the Deen. The ibadah, types of worship, are always connected to their corresponding reports and narrations in the Sharia. Thus, it is not allowed to call something ibadah without it being mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. For instance, if somebody does not know about the obligation of prayer because he lives in a village isolated from civilization, or he is new in Islam, such a person does not commit kufr if he does not pray as long as the evidence concerning the obligation of prayer is not brought to him. If after that he still insists on neglecting the prayer, he becomes a Kaafir. Alcohol, for example, was allowed until Allah prohibited it. Likewise, a Muslim who is living in a village which lies far remote from civilization, or he is new in Islam and does not know anything about the prohibition of alcohol and continues drinking, believing that it is permitted and that Allah did not send anything concerning its prohibition, he undoubtedly does not commit kufr. However, if the message and evidence regarding its prohibition reaches him and he still insists that it is allowed, then he will become a Kaafir according to the consensus of the scholars. Shaykh Abu Maryam continues, if someone associating himself with Islam worships someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by calling upon someone other than Allah or supplicating to someone other than Allah for help in a matter which only Allah alone can help, then this person has make equal someone else with Allah in his worship. One cannot say he is a jahil and at the same time excuse because he did not know that Allah alone deserves to be worshipped. Thus, such person he is a mushrik. This is the true meaning of shirk. No one enters Islam before he does not know that worship is only due to Allah alone. If a person assumes that one can utter the Shehada and at the same time continue to worship someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he is a person who does not know that only Allah alone has the right to be worshipped. Therefore, this person cannot, according to the definition, be a Muslim. If at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the mushrikun from the Arabs would take up Islam and associate himself with it, but however continues to worship Allah and Uzza and Manat, would the Muslim of them say he is a Muslim? Meaning, would the Sahaba say for them that he is still a Muslim because he does not know? Islam exists only then when a person knows that only Allah alone has the right to be worshipped and that one must reject the Taghouth. Shaykh Abu Maryam, Hafidhullah, says finally, it may occur that people enter Islam and outwardly nothing seems to suggest that their utterance of la ilaha illallah may have been nullified inwardly. However, they do not know the meaning of the Shehada. Regarding such people, we judge according to what is apparent, namely that they are Muslims. This is done until we see something from them which shows us that they have not understood la ilaha illallah, such as supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or tahakum, going to the false judge to seek hukum, even when there is no Sharia judge. Because it is ibadah when there is a Sharia court, and it is ibadah when there is no Sharia court. And ibadah does not change, because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered that only to Him is the hukm, inna al-hukma illa lillah, then it is to the day of judgment. And this does not change according to circumstances. It does not change according to circumstances. May Allah save us from shirk and from kufr. May Allah save us from ignorance. And here, Abu Hamza al-Afghani, he finished his 7th irrefutable evidence in his book, either Muslim or Mushrik, and now he's commencing with the 8th irrefutable evidence. So inshallah, we are going to stop here. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me, my family, to forgive you and your families, and to guide us to truth, and to give us tawfiq to act according to our knowledge, and to give us beneficial knowledge which is going to benefit us in this life and in hereafter, and to give us sincerity, ikhlas, in order to be sincere towards Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to worship Him only with all our deeds of the heart or of the limbs. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, ashhadu anna la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayh.